As if the industry frenzy over AI wasn't already at a fevered pitch, this week Claude has begun embedding an invisible, machine-readable watermark directly into text generated or even touched by its supported models. Honestly, I didn't plan on writing about AI's impact on the publishing industry and authors, but here we are. This can't be ignored. For the record, I'm concerned about this one, but not for the reasons you might think. Well, if you know me well, maybe for the reasons you think. There are two big reasons I'm concerned, and they apply to any author who uses any AI for any reason whatsoever, even research. And this is a problem because the simple fact is AI is here in our world to stay. Whether or not it stays in your writing life and your author career, it's here. And if we know how to use AI in a way that we choose to support our author careers, we will be able to achieve far more than if we don't. That's why I want all authors to know about AI and to know how to use it in a way that they choose. I'm Laura Humling, and I own Forest City Publications. I make these videos to empower authors in an industry fundamentally and historically designed to keep authors beneath a ceiling made of titanium, not glass, titanium. The thing about this watermark within Claude is that it's embedded in the text in a way that you can't see. And it's not just in what Claude writes, it's in text that Claude processes. You won't see it. It survives when you copy and paste the text into another program. It can survive editing. And Anthropic says it is being implemented at the model level, meaning it applies across Claude. And not just in Europe, worldwide. Why? Because the European Union's AI Act began imposing new transparency requirements on August 2nd this year, 2026. Providers of any generative AI systems must make AI-generated or manipulated content machine detectable. Hello, Big Brother, Europe. So naturally, the headlines are going to be, Claude can now be detected, and now all those cheating authors are going to be exposed. Now look, before you panic or get really irritated, we need to separate two completely different questions. Can Claude be detected? Apparently, increasingly, yes. But the much more important question is who is doing the detecting, and does it actually matter to your writing career? To understand whether it matters, you want to analyze one thing. What position do these detectors occupy downstream from your books? Because that determines whether the watermark matters at all. And I'll explain what I mean by downstream as we go ahead here. And here's a critical fact. Anthropic itself warns that detecting the watermark does not establish that Claude authored the work. It says detection means the material may have been processed by Claude. That is a very different statement. Claude could have proofread it, translated it, summarized it, or even edited material that originated somewhere else. So right out of the gate, Claude detected does not equal Claude authored. And that distinction is going to be very important. It's absolutely critical to understanding this, but will people respond to it that way? It depends on who's downstream of you and who's your gatekeepers. What gatekeepers are you choosing to work with? A watermark has no power by itself, of course. A watermark is information. That's all it is. It only acquires power when somebody downstream decides that the information means something. That's the framework I want you to remember. The watermark matters in proportion to the position of whoever is downstream. Every downstream entity has power of some kind. The issue is, what position do they occupy relative to your work? A contest committee occupies one position. A traditional publisher occupies another. Both of those are very likely to use this watermark and to want other watermarks so that they can control the flow of information. Amazon occupies another. A reader occupies another. And those positions create entirely different incentives. That means there is no useful, universal answer to the question, should authors care about the Claude watermark? The answer is, who are you trying to reach? And who stands between you and them? Let's look at who's downstream. Take a contest committee. A contest committee is downstream as a gatekeeper if you want to win that contest. They control one thing you want, access to their contest. And some contests are already drawing extremely broad lines because they've been called out and embarrassed by this whole thing. Writer's Digest currently states that AI-generated or AI-assisted work will not be considered in the 2026 annual writing competition. But what exactly is AI-assisted? That's a whole nother question. How are they going to define it? And that's where this watermark could be dangerous for authors if they have any involvement with AI whatsoever. Its self-published book awards use the same language. So if you want a Writer's Digest award, their AI policy matters. Not because they've established the universal definition of authorship, because you want something they control. And that's a very important distinction. Now take the traditional publisher. A traditional publisher is downstream as an acquirer. If you want that publisher to acquire your manuscript, their requirements matter. We are already seeing AI restrictions enter publishing contracts. The Author Guild's current model language recommends disclosure of AI-generated text, of course, and proposes contractual limits such as a de minimis amount or 5%. Again, the publisher does not possess some metaphysical authority to determine whether you are a real writer. They have the authority to say, if you want us to publish you, these are our conditions. Fair enough. You then decide whether you want that as an arrangement. Now let's look at Amazon. And here the position changes completely. Amazon is downstream as a commercial marketplace and distribution platform. And Amazon's current KDP policy makes a distinction I think is extremely important. Amazon requires disclosure of AI-generated content, but it specifically says you do not have to disclose AI-assisted content. And Amazon defines AI assistance to include things like editing, refining, error checking, improving something you created, brainstorming ideas when you ultimately create the text yourself. That tells us something important about Amazon's position. Amazon is not currently trying to certify the purity of your creative process. It is regulating what enters its marketplace. And then we finally reach the person I personally care about the most, the reader. The reader is downstream as the end user. The reader's power is different. They decide, do I want this? Is this worth my money? Am I going to like this story? Am I going to learn from this? Does it entertain me? Is it for me? Remember, I told you that's their question. Is this for me? And if your readers genuinely care about how much AI you used, fine, that becomes a market condition and consideration. Listen to them. But if your reader does not care whether you brainstorm Chapter 7 with Claude, there is no reason to manufacture a gatekeeper between yourself and that reader simply so somebody can police the process. Now, follow this chain one more step further. Don't stop at who is downstream from me. Ask who is downstream from them. Think about the contest committee. Who holds them accountable? Maybe their membership, maybe their reputation, but often the system is remarkably insular. They establish the criteria, they determine who meets the criteria, they bestow the recognition, and then the recognition itself becomes evidence of their authority to establish the criteria. It can become a closed loop. Now compare that with Amazon. Amazon has readers downstream. Ingram has publishers, retailers, bookstores, libraries, and ultimately readers downstream. Their decisions collide with commercial reality. If they make it substantially harder to sell books people want to buy, that has consequences. That does not mean that commercial platforms are your BFFs. It means markets discipline them differently. And this is why you cannot look at the publishing industry as though it were one giant entity making one AI decision. It isn't. The incentives are completely different depending on where someone sits in the chain. But I need a traditional publisher to reach readers. I hear this so often, and this is one of the fears that authors have, and I get it. This is where I think a lot of authors get trapped. They hear, you don't have to submit to a gatekeeper, and immediately think, sure I do. How else am I going to reach readers? That belief made considerably more sense 30 years ago, because traditional publishers controlled enormous pieces of the infrastructure. They controlled access to printing, and they gave authors marketing. They don't do that anymore. Sure, they get you in bookstores, but you can get there yourself. Did they give media professional production to some authors? They don't now, not unless you're already proven. And if you're already proven, why do you need them? So publishing and access has a tendency to become psychologically fused. Get chosen by a publisher, gain access to readers. But those are different functions today. What an author actually needs is production, distribution, discoverability, reader demand. A traditional publisher can provide those things, but it no longer owns them. An independent author can produce a professional print book. An independent author can have that book available through Amazon. An independent author can use wholesale distribution, and you can make books orderable by bookstores and libraries and other institutions. You can sell directly, you can have an email list, you can use YouTube, podcasts, social media, speaking, communities, all of these things that a traditional publisher would have you doing anyway. And you would give them 94% of your royalties. In what world does that make sense? But if you really want to be traditionally published, I know there are some arguments for it. You know, if you just want to be noticed, if you want the status of it, if you just want to have your book in print, I totally get that and I respect it. Okay, it's not my zone. It's not my zone. I am much more, as you know, an independent proponent. Now, notice what I did not say through all of this. I didn't say that any of this is easy. Okay, it's not easy. It's not easy if you're a traditionally published author or if you're independently published. It's not easy. Access and success are not the same thing. You can have access to readers and fail to reach them. Traditional publishers can have access to readers and fail to reach them too. But an independent author no longer needs an acquiring editor to grant them the right to try. That is the revolution. Traditional publishing looks something like author, agent, publisher, distributor, retailer, reader. Independent publishing can dramatically shorten that. Author, distributor, reader. That shortened chain doesn't eliminate powerful companies. It eliminates some of the people who get to say no before the reader ever gets to say yes. And that's why I say no gatekeepers. And that is why the Claude watermark is a fundamentally different problem for an independent author. So where does the watermark actually matter? It matters when you are deliberately entering a gate. If you are entering a contest with an AI prohibition, pay attention. If you are submitting to a publisher with an AI restriction, pay attention. If you're applying for a grant or fellowship with AI rules, pay attention. And keep track of what you have done and not done, because it's not just about not using the AI. It's also about, did any AI touch it at any time? If you're submitting academic work, pay attention. The bottom line is know the rules before you enter. It also potentially matters where platform policies could change. So keep your eye on it. And that's why I'm making this video. As policies change, we need to keep abreast and we need to decide what it means to us and what it doesn't mean to us. Amazon currently distinguishes between AI-generated and AI-assisted content. Ingram Spark currently says content created using automated means, including AI-generated material, may not be accepted. But here's the thing. I don't think Ingram's going to go very far with that because their main competition is Amazon, okay? And they don't want to get behind. So, regardless, watch what commercial platforms are doing with their policies because this is a rapidly evolving landscape. Don't invent rules if they haven't been created either. Don't tell yourself no. Don't be your own gatekeeper. And now where doesn't another institution's rules matter? Everywhere that institution isn't in your chain. If you are not entering a competition like the Writer's Digest does not matter. It does not get to determine your creative process. If you are not submitting your book to Random House's acquisition standards do not govern your manuscript. A rule governs the system that created it. So don't borrow restrictions from gates you aren't trying to enter. And here's the real problem. Do we want AI police? And this is my second problem. This is where the conversation becomes bigger than Claude. There are things we absolutely should care about. Plagiarism, copyright infringement, fraud, deception, impersonation, stealing someone else's work. Those are acts. Those cause identifiable harms. But we are starting to move towards something very different, policing the creative process itself. And before we normalize that, I want to ask, do we actually want AI police? Because the moment we accept the premise that AI involvement itself needs to be detected, somebody has to define unacceptable involvement. Is AI allowed to brainstorm, research, outline, proofread? Those things seem pretty innocuous to me. What about suggesting better transitions? What about rewriting a paragraph or drafting a paragraph and then you rewrite it completely? We've talked about how these things can be really positive for people who have disabilities that would otherwise prevent them from getting their stories in print. And I understand it can be abused, but every power that we have in humanity has been abused, and it has been used for good. And I would argue, maybe I'm a little Pollyanna on this, and I'll own that it's been used for more good than evil. But my biggest issue is who decides? Who decides? Here's a fascinating example of how unstable these boundaries already are. The Authors Guild has a human authored certification. In May 2026, it actually revised its definition because authors raised concerns that the language around AI-assisted brainstorming and outlining was too broad. Its current definition allows only de minimis generated or modified material with examples such as AI-powered spelling and grammar checking. By the way, Claude's Watermark will get you on that one. So even an organization specifically trying to establish a human authorship standard is already having to revisit the boundary because the boundary is hard. And here's an even more interesting fact. The European Union's own guidance said the machine-readable mark requirement does not apply when an AI performs a standard assistive editing function or does not substantially alter the input of its meaning. Think about that. Even the law driving this watermarking regime recognizes a distinction between AI generating content and AI assisting with ordinary editing. Yet Anthropic says its embedded watermark will apply to everything and will be deployed. And Anthropic simultaneously warns that watermark does not tell you Claude was the original author. It may merely mean Claude processed the material. Do you see the problem? We are creating a machine-readable signal that is broader than the conclusion people are going to want to draw from it. That is fertile ground for bad policing. Signal detected, therefore AI written, except Anthropic itself says you cannot make that inference. And that is exactly why authors should resist turning provenance technology into a morality detector. Tell me if someone plagiarizes. Tell me if they stole copyrighted expression or fraudulently claimed credentials they don't have. But don't tell me the mere presence of a tool determines whether the creative process was legitimate. Those are fundamentally different things. Responsibility, not tool purity. And this is where I draw my line. I am not arguing that anything goes. I'm arguing for responsibility instead of tool purity and individual authors over institutional policing. Is your name on the cover? You own the result. That is accountability. And I would much rather build publishing norms around human responsibility than around whether someone used an approved sequence of tools approved by an institution. So yes, Claude is watermarking text. You need to know that. If you use Claude, understand what is happening. And if you are approaching a gatekeeper with explicit AI rules, understand those rules before you submit your work. But do not make the mistake of assuming that because somebody somewhere has established an AI rule, that rule now governs you. Remember the key question, who is downstream from my writing? What position do they currently occupy? Who is downstream from them? And why? And most importantly, who am I ultimately trying to reach? For me, the answer is readers. At the end of the day, our work requires something much broader and harder than any of this. It has to earn the reader, and that's where our focus should be. Remember, no gatekeepers, no excuses. I'll see you next week, and join the Guild where we have a lot more conversations about this.